Good afternoon to one and all present here. Today, we are gathered here to discuss a rather pertinent matter about the LGBTQ community and its presence in today's society. LGBTQIA is a community of diverse sexual orientations and gender identities, which will be the spotlight of this event.
Led by the Mental Health Committee and Nazaria, a queer feminist resource group which focuses on spreading light among all LGBTQIA people and works on issues regarding gender-based violence, livelihoods, education, and health from a queer perspective through research and evaluations, capacity building, and advocacy. We'd also be having a Q&A session, hence we'd request our live audience on YouTube and on Zoom to send in their questions in the chat box. We will be taking them up towards the end.
Today, we are joined by the members of the NGO itself, Zayan and Jitender. We are grateful to have you here.
Jitender is a non-binary person working with Nazaria, a queer feminist resource group based out of Delhi, as a program manager. They have previously worked with organizations like All India Women's Conference, Beyond I, the YB Foundation, and Hidden Pockets on a variety of issues like climate change, gender, sexual and reproductive health and rights, etc. Through their work, they have been advocating for equal and equitable spaces for queer and trans persons in every aspect of social life. They love cooking and playing games with their other non-binary friends.
Zayan is a trans man working with Nazaria as a program associate. He's a trained educator and has been studying the field of education for the last 6 years. He's passionate about bringing awareness around gender and sexuality in the mainstream of educational discourses, and his interest areas include reading about education, caste, and gender and sexuality. Thank you for being here with us today. We hope to have a clearer view of this topic after your session.
Thank you so much, Priyamavada and Yonika. This was a really beautiful introduction. So we'll start with our session today. We'll be trying to understand LGBTQIA community. So we'll begin with a presentation, just the sense of the entire workshop. It will be like, we'll begin with a little bit of introduction of our organization and what are we going to do within the session. Then Zen and I will take you through some aspects of LGBTQIA because we do have a time limit, so we'll try to fit in as much as we can. Along with that, another important aspect of today's workshop will be a little bit discussion on bullying in schools, because a lot of LGBTQ community kids, they face immense violence in school. So we also thought that it'd be a great idea to introduce through this session to the school about this particular aspect as well. I would request Zayan to share the screen so then we can start. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Zayan. Next slide. Yeah. Okay. So Nazaria is led and run by a queer person with a focus on queer women and trans person. We at Nazaria work with a view to make LGBTQI life visible. We were founded in 2014. We believe that all queer persons have the capability and capacity to demand our rights and speak for ourselves when we have the access to resources and equal opportunities in a non-discriminatory environment. We advocate for creating such an environment. So what we are doing today, we're also advocating for LGBTQIA people, and we're also increasing this awareness. So then we can start with ground rules for today's session, because it's always important to have certain rules in place. So one is keep yourself on mute. I think that problem is already resolved by the school itself. Thank you so much for that. Then if possible, keep your videos on, and if you can't, it's completely fine. Do not interrupt in between. That's also, I think, been sorted, because in the beginning we said that all the questions we can take it towards the end. Always ask questions is always a good idea. No questions are wrong, no questions are bad. If you have any kind of confusion, we are here. And if any question we won't be able to answer in today's session, you can always collect those questions, send it to your teachers, and they can send it to us at our organizational email ID, and then we can respond to that. Don't be judgmental. So few of the things that we need to keep in our mind when we are discussing today's session, LGBTQI community. Many of us know a little bit about it. A lot of it comes from our popular media, a lot of come from social media, a lot of come from cinema and all those other things. What happens is we tend to have some perceptions. So whatever you're going to hear today, have an open mind. Try to understand what are those things. If you're getting confused, it's completely fine. It takes time. We're not aiming to make you an expert or completely, out of all the judgments and whatever you have in your mind. So keep an open mind and keep learning and unlearning. This is a continuous process, even for Zan and I. We just keep learning and unlearning every single day. So take today's presentation as a grain of salt, and there is a lot more that can be covered, but we'll be trying to be as brief as we can, and we'll try to cover as much as we can today. Then, yeah. Okay, so now I'll give this mic to Zayan, and then we'll take over to the next part of the session.
Okay, am I audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am, please continue.
Okay, perfect. So hello everyone, my name is Zayan and thank you very much to the school and the students for that lovely introduction. We are going to start with this activity. So you can send in your responses in the chat box and we would love to read your responses. So this is the story of Krishna. And I'm going to read this abstract. You can also read it yourself. It might be appearing in your screens and on the YouTube screens as well. So this is about a person called Krishna. And after reading this entire thing, you just have to let both Jeet and I know that what do you think about Krishna, if Krishna is a boy or a girl, or what do you think about their gender? So I'm going to read this out to you. Krishna got up and went to the bathroom, leaving pajamas on the floor and turning on the shower. Krishna stepped into the water. It was not a hair washing day, so after a quick rub with the soap, it was time to get out and dry off. After toweling and applying hair putty to the new short haircut, Krishna dabbed on some moisturizing lotion and some tinted lip balm. Krishna went on to get dressed. Nothing special was happening today, so jeans and a shirt would be fine. The only choice really to be made was between sandals, floaters, or chappals. So here we have this morning routine of Krishna's one day, and you have to guess what Krishna's gender might be and share your responses in the chat box. So we are going to wait for that. And I'm going to stop the screen sharing so that I can also see the faces, or maybe, yeah, this is going to work.
Zayan, are you able to read the responses in the chat? Okay, I'll tell you. Okay, so Rashmi says male, Yonika says male, Nakshita says Krishna might be non-binary, Kanat says male, Gauri says male. So these are the responses that we have. We can wait for another minute and then.
Sure.
Yeah. Prakriti said bisexual, male or female. Someone said can be anyone. Ram said, Lakshya said male, Saina said male. Priyamavada said gender non-binary. Neonika said gender neutral. Yeah. Hello, Zain, are you there? You can read the responses now.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing your responses with us. I see I and G3 both see ample of responses in the chat box. And with this, we are going to go to this another slide and we're going to talk about Krishna more in the coming slides. So I'll share the screen again. Okay, so what are the different ways in which we really judge if a person is a male or a female? So we have associated some of the characteristics to both of these binaries of male and female, right? So if I ask you कि अगर आपको देखना है कि अगर एक मेल है, if a person is born as a man, what kind of characteristics do you associate with this kind of a person? तो हम देखते हैं कि there is also this way of judging the people's gender by the way they express themselves by their clothing. तो हम कहते हैं कि okay, if you're a girl, you might wear a skirt or shorts, a salwar, kurta kameez, sari. If you're a male, you can wear okay shirt, pant, t-shirt. That is gonna work for you. And if you're a female, it's important for you to keep quiet, stay silent, do not shout at things, do not be angry. If you're a man, if you're a male, then it's important for you to be atrocious, to be angry, to be, manly and behave in a certain way. So these are all different ways in which we really associate different characteristics to both male and female, right? If you're male, it's important for you to go outside and work and earn for your family. If you're a female, it's often said that it's good to be a good mother, a good daughter, stay at home, look after the people of Krishna. If I one day, right now I'm wearing a t-shirt, as you can see, I think you can see it. Okay. And tomorrow, if I decide to wear a sari, is it going to change my gender? That is the question. So I identify myself as a trans man. Now, what does that mean? That's an important question. So when I was born, the doctors held me in their hand and they said, Mubarak ho, ladki hui hai. But throughout my life, I never felt like one. And I always saw myself as a boy when I was young. Now I see myself as a man. And the people around me, I really want them to see me as a man only. So you might have male professors, male speakers coming in your school talking to you, and you might address them in a certain way. So I would also want myself to be addressed in the same way because I identify myself as a man, though I'm born in a female body, but that doesn't change my gender identity. So it doesn't matter what kind of a body I'm born with or what kind of clothes I wear. I can choose to wear anything, and that clothes are not going to decide my gender. So many of you also said that Krishna's gender can be anything. So yes, that's also a nice thing. It can be anything. Krishna can be a male, as many of you have written. Krishna can also be a female, a woman, right? So it can be anything, and we cannot really decide their gender with the kind of clothes they wear. So now we're going to watch a video on what gender is. Okay.
All right, folks, here we go. A romaine and kale salad with avocado, cucumber, shishito peppers, and 4 kinds of cheese. Sprinkled in balsamic straight from Italy.
Wow. In my day, salads only had 2 ingredients: a rock-hard wedge of iceberg lettuce and a stinky old dried-up tomato.
Sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to eat fast. Alex is stopping by in a few minutes to work on a robotics project.
Alex, is that the girl with that weird dog or the boy with the hat with the wings that flap?
No, Uncle Jay. This is Alex.
Oh, okay. I remember. A very nice young, come to think of it. Well, is Alex a boy or a girl?
Actually, Alex doesn't define themselves as boy or girl.
What else is there?
Back in your day, most people understood the world in terms of just boys and girls. But now we know gender is more complex than that.
Wait, aren't we just talking about whether you're born with a or a
When you're born, your sex is assigned in a medical way, but the sex listed on your birth certificate may not necessarily match your gender identity.
Gender identity is a person's inner experience of who they are in terms of gender, their deep personal sense of being male, female, a blend of both, or neither.
And while many people have a gender identity that's the same as their assigned birth sex of female or male, that's not always the case because gender exists on a spectrum. Like transgender, which means a person whose gender identity is not consistent with their assigned birth sex. Non-binary, which means a person whose identity specific gender at all.
Does gender identity have to do with being straight or gay?
Actually, no. Gender identity has to do with the way you feel about yourself, while sexual orientation is based on the way you feel toward others, the people you may or may not be attracted to.
You know, I really like Alex, and I can tell they're a good friend to you, but I'm still pretty confused about all of this.
That's okay. You don't have to fully understand someone to respect them. To start, try not to make any assumptions about a person's gender and use the name and pronouns that they ask you to. Above all, be a friend or ally for people of all gender identities.
That's right, Mom. Oh, Alex is here. Come on in.
Hey, everyone.
Oh, hey, Alex. Care for some salad? The balsamic's right from Italy, you know.
Okay, so here we are after the video. So you saw that there are a variety of gender identities that really exist around us. तो जब हम पैदा होते हैं, when we are born, we are given certain sex. Okay, we are born with certain genitalia, and that genitalia really decide our sex. And then we are also given some characteristics depending upon our sex assigned at birth. So, for example, since I was born as a girl, the society wanted me to act like a girl, wear clothes like a girl, sit like a girl, talk like a girl, and do several of those things, right? But when one tries to challenge these norms, then there might be a bit uneasiness in the environment around us, right? So what is gender? Gender is basically constructed by the society to push people into the binaries of male and female. कि okay, अगर आप एक आदमी के शरीर में पैदा हुए हैं तो आप आदमी वाले characteristics से associate करेंगे. You're going to portray and show and express yourself using those characteristics and nothing else. So if I, for example, am born in a female's body, then I'm also going to abide by the norms that are assigned with a female or a woman, right? So this is what gender is, that really pushes us into the boxes of male and female, man and woman, male or female. Sex होगा, उसके बारे में जीत आगे बात करेंगे, but in the binaries of man and woman. So when we talk about gender, it is not just in the binaries, and we also saw it even in the video. So there are a variety of gender identities that exist beyond man and woman. For example, transgender persons. I am one of the examples of such. Non-binary person who do not identify in the binaries at all. So ऐसा भी हो सकता है. So for example, if today I feel like a boy, I might feel like a girl tomorrow. And the other day I might not feel like a girl or a boy. I might feel, okay, I do not really align with the binaries, and I do not want to give myself a label of the gender, and I just want to roam without any label. So that is also a possibility. So gender, that's the reason we say gender is a spectrum. There are a lot of possibilities in it to express yourselves, to be yourself. So as I said, that when we are born, certain characteristics are associated with our sex assigned at birth. जैसे कि मैंने आपको बताया कि अगर आप एक आदमी पैदा हुए हैं तो the society expects you to act like a man. अगर आप एक महिला पैदा हुए हैं, the society expects you to act like a woman. And if you are not going to abide by these norms, अगर नहीं करेंगे हम, so there are going to be punishments, punitive consequences, bullying. We are not going to find any kind of acceptance in the society, right? So these are the consequences of not really abiding with these gender norms. So, Jeet, if you have to add anything to this, please.
No, sir. Thank you. You can continue.
Okay. So this was all about gender. I and Jeet, we both know people at times have a lot of questions when it comes to gender, and we're going to address all of them at the end. So you can keep your questions in your register or a notebook, and we're going to address all of them. So over to you, Jeet. I'll go ahead.
Thank you, Zen, for talking about gender. And when you were talking about non-binary, I'm also a non-binary person, which means that I don't assign myself or ascribe myself to either of the gender. Now, the thing with the sex word is that people tend to use these terms, sex and gender, interchangeably. Means a lot of time there is confusion. What is sex? What is gender? And a lot of time when people, what they do is that when they mix it up, there is a lot of confusion that gets created. Even when Zen was talking about, many of you might have many confusions regarding gender, how to address them. Many of you might have heard about the entire this thing about pronouns. In the video also they said that you need to address someone if they're asking you to use particular pronouns for them, all those things. So all those questions might come into your mind. All these things might get a little bit confusing, but always remember that all of us are here to learn something and also to unlearn something that was already there. So always keep those questions towards the end. So what is sex? Sex is someone who's born. The usual imagination is that when someone is born, as then gave an example, at birth, the doctors or the medical community quickly assign someone, oh, this is a male, this is a female. So that's what sex is. A lot of time, it sounds very simple when we think in these terms, but it's not very simple at the same time. So what happened is like gender is a construct, right? What Zan was talking about, how people were expecting males to behave in a certain way, female to behave in a certain way, and that's what gender is. So only women can wear saris, only men can go out and work, only women can do makeup, only men can go to the gym and do particular sports. So we see those happening, but at the same time we also see those boundaries are also being crossed. You would see many women taking part in sports now. Many of them are weightlifters. The traditional male idea of power is also sort of shifting. So we see that, as Zan rightly said, the gender is a spectrum. So what is sex? Sex is also like, as I said, that is viewed in binaries, right? Either it's a one or two, but there are all, just like gender, there are also exceptions in sex also. There are people who might born with both the organs when they're born, and it's really difficult for the medical community to assign what gender is that. We call them intersex. What happens in intersex when someone is born with either one or uh, two types of reproductive organs of a human. It could be male, female, or both. And doctors don't know. So a lot of time what the doctors do, and it's a very simple and brief explanation. It's much more complex. We will definitely make sure that we share some resource on this particular bit. So what happens when doctor don't know what to assign? So they choose the gender of the person who is just an infant, who does not have any agency or rights to, say that I am this gender or that gender. So once the assigning happens, they just make either male or female. But then later, when they grow up, they struggle with their identity, because they have also been continuously told that you're particular from this gender, but they might feel like another gender or no gender at all. So that's a little very, very brief, very small explanation of intersex. We will come to that, and we will also share some resources on these bits. So don't worry. I know that it sounds really confusing at the same time, but we make sure that it doesn't happen. So like gender isn't a binary, sex isn't a binary either. So it's a good learning, and it could be a thumb rule that we can always see that, not assign people into binaries and always keep the space open. So then our spaces become more inclusive, and we're always open to understand and know new people other than these binaries of gender and sex. Then can we go to the next slide? Yeah. Yeah. So now we come to the LGBTQIA plus community. The community is vast. There are so many identities right now. because people are also finding this new language, how to describe their inner feelings, how to describe themselves. So that's why it's an expansion. That's where the plus sign is there. It's not a limited idea that, there are only 7 or 6 identities. They can be many, many, many identities, depending on culture, depending on societies, depending on, what is the location. And the idea that Zan and I were talking about continuously till now about gender and sex, because that's really closely linked with the identities of LGBTQIA people. So in a short form, it's an acronym for lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, intersex, and asexual people. These are diverse gender identities and sexuality. But for a very brief, will try to explain all these. Then can we move to the next slide? Yeah. Okay, so first two are lesbian and gay. So these are lesbian is a woman who was born as a woman, feels like she's a woman, and she's attracted towards romantically, and she finds attraction in the same sex woman. We call them lesbian. Gay is a person who identifies as a sexual man, emotionally, sexually, romantically is attracted to other people who's also a man, and we call them gay. Gay is also a very loose term. It can be used for women and men both. For gay men, it's often used about homosexual men or homosexual women. So gay can also be interchangeably used for both of them. Then can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so bisexual people are who are emotionally, romantically attracted towards not just their own gender, but also the opposite gender. So people who are attracted to male and female both, we call them bisexual. Then trans and transgender, Zan has already mentioned a little bit, a very brief about the trans identities. So it's an umbrella term for people whose gender identity is different from sex assigned to them at birth. It refers to all non-cisgender gender identity. So if you're a cisgender would mean you were born as a male, you were ascribed as a male, you were told that you're a male, and you feel like you're a male, as goes for the women as well, or girls as well. So then your identity would be cisgender because you believe, oh, I was born like this, and I feel like this, and this is my identity. Other than these identity, all the other identities that are there, including trans women, trans men, gender non-conforming, genderqueer people, gender non-binary, agender, etc. All these identity comes under trans umbrella identity, which we call transgender. In India, we have also another identity which is legally recognized as a third gender identity, which is Hijra identity. Hijra is a South Asian based context. It's a community of people. Those could be transgender, those could not be transgender. It's a completely different community of Hijra people. They have their own set of rules, they have their own communities, which has an ancient history. And until I think Britishers did, when they did the first census in India, then this order started, marking them that this is a Hijra group, and this is when that's the time when statistically they were starting appearing in the legal documents. So third gender, Indian law recognizes them in third gender law, but it also does for the transgender people. But Hijra community is very different from transgender. They have their own set of rules, as I already mentioned. Many of them, you might have seen them in many of the videos on YouTube, many of the TED Talks. After the 2014, there was a judgment called Nalsa judgment, which the Supreme Court recognizes transgender communities' rights. And after that, you will see a lot of influx of many people coming out on your social medias, on YouTube, on your television screens. Yeah, can we go to the next slide? Yeah. Queer is again, it's another umbrella term. Queer used to be used as a derogatory remark for LGBTQ community, mostly for gay men and gay women in US and Western concept. And then once the slang, the community has tried to reclaim the word queer. So now queer is used for anyone who's non-heterosexual, who's non-cisgender. It's used for everybody who's there in the community, in the LGBTQI community. Intersex, as I try to explain very briefly about what intersex is. So intersex variations are differences in reproductive parts or secondary sexual characteristics or variation invisible to the eye, such as chromosomal behavior or hormonal behavior or hormonal differences, sorry. Human bodies have many variants, and these could be at multiple levels. So it is in fact incorrect to talk of an absolute standard of normal for the male or the female body. We choose to say person with intersex variation as against intersex conditions. So these are, because when you say condition, that means, there is something wrong with them or quote unquote wrong with them, which is not true. These are just variations. Just like there are varieties of gender, there can be variety of sex as well. So this is a little bit brief about what the LGBTQIA community stands for. You might have many questions, and these are not the only identities. As I said, there are many more identities. There is non-binary, there is agender, there is two-spirit. Interesting thing about two-spirit is very culturally based in native peoples communities in US and Canada with the native Indians have this concept of two-spirit. It's another layer of the LGBTQIA community. And so, as I said in the beginning, that culturally also there are many identities that we don't generally put them in LGBTQIA when we look at them with this cursory glance. So these are some of them. Now, can we move to the next slide then? Yeah. So just to summarize what I have said so far, we can play a very small video on sexual orientations, and then can you play that?
Kissed a girl and I liked it, the taste of her cherry chapstick. Oh, hi. Sorry. I just love this song. Wait a second. What does that mean? Does it mean I'm,
Starting around puberty, many young people begin to experience new feelings of attraction for other people. These feelings can be confusing and even a bit scary. But don't worry, these feelings are normal, although at times inconvenient. Who you are attracted to physically and romantically is called sexual orientation. Girls who are attracted romantically and physically to other girls are homosexual and also called lesbians. Guys who are attracted physically and romantically to other guys are homosexual and also called gay. Sometimes people use the term gay for lesbians as well. People who are attracted to people of the opposite sex are heterosexual. People who are attracted to both girls and guys are bisexual. While many people know their sexual orientation at a very young age, it is also common at this age to feel confused about your thoughts and feelings regarding who you find attractive. In fact, you may find yourself thinking about people of the same sex and of the opposite sex and be unsure. Don't worry, some people need a bit more time to sort it all out. Eventually, whatever your sexual orientation may be, you will find you are perfect exactly as you are.
boys like the girls who do girls like the boys. Always should be someone you really love. Okay, guys, till next time. And don't forget to come and visit me at amaze.org or go to my YouTube channel to watch more. Bye.
Right. So as in the video, we have also seen, what is this entire LGBTQ community. Another way to understand what Diane and I have been talking about gender and sexual orientation is to take the example of genderbread person. I keep calling it gingerbread person. So there are four aspects of it. One is identity, attraction, expression, and sex. So identity means that whatever you think that you are, you might feel like a male, female, or none of them. That's a gender identity which is there in your brain. Attraction is how you're romantically and physically attracted towards other person. Will sort of say that this is a gender expression. Biological sex would mean that what you were assigned and whether you identify with that or not, or whether what kind of gender or which gender you would like to see yourself fitting in as. It could be male, female, trans, it could be non-binary, it could be gender non-conforming, it could be anything. It's completely up to you. You have the right, you have the agency to choose that, and that's completely depending on your feelings. Then finally, the biological sex, which means, the sexually attraction, which means like, what is your attraction towards other person, which also defines your orientation. So your gender identity, your gender expression, your orientation will all define you as a person, what your main identity is. So there are plenty of identities. There are many more gender identities. There are many kinds of sexual orientation. One more that I also forgot to mention was that is asexual. Asexual community is also part of LGBTQ community. These are the people who don't find attraction with either male or female or anyone. But that doesn't mean that they don't feel love completely. It's a just like Zain and I said that orientation and gender expression is at a spectrum. Asexuality can also be a spectrum. People might get attracted towards someone, or they might also feel a little bit of attraction. For example, in a romantic community, people do enjoy platonic relationship with other friends and communities. They might not feel as romantically as we see in cinema, right? We see Bollywood hero and heroine singing songs, talking about love all the time. We see quotes on our social media floating around on the Valentine's Day and everything. But for asexual community, that might not be exactly the same. But and I would keep repeating and saying that I know many asexual people who will find some bit of attraction, some bit of love for other people, but that's completely different from what we know as love is, or we know as attraction is. And again, we will definitely make sure to send you more resources on it, so there is no confusion. Or you can also like start searching for yourself and try to unlearn many things beyond the session as well. Zayan, would you like to add something here?
No, Ji, thank you very much.
All right, so then we can move on to the next slide. Right. So as I mentioned in the beginning, that we will also be talking about a little bit of bullying. So what happens when a lot of people who are from LGBTQI community, many of them can pass and some of them cannot pass. So what does that mean? Some people who are identifying as lesbian, gay, or they have any kind of gender expression, they manage to suppress it in a way that no one can figure out by looking at them whether they are from LGBTQI community or not. But there are some people who cannot do that, and they just want to express it freely and openly. A lot of time they face bullying in school from making fun. When I was in for example, when I was in school, I used to get homophobic slangs or transphobic slangs all the time in my school. Many LGBTQI community adults now who have shared that when they were in school, it was really difficult for them because they would face these kind of bullying and violence in school. A lot of time, these bullying will turn into physical violence, and people would, mock them, and all these things happen. So, along with the journal kind of bullying that happens in schools between the peer groups, a lot of LGBTQI people face very intense bullying and violence. So this is why we also thought it's important to talk about that as well. Then can we go to the next slide? Right. So also to understand what is a school space, right? Is your school building the structure that is there, your cafeteria, your classrooms, your playground, are those only part of your school spaces? So yes, that is your part of your school, but it can also be, if you're going on a trip, that is also part of your school structure. If you're going and visiting some museum with your classmates, as part of the school trip, that will also be a physical space. Non-physical space is what we are doing right now, right? We are sitting in our homes, joining us through the Zoom. That's also non-physical space, which means that it's the online space. And after the COVID pandemic, we have also discovered this new kind of a space. So the idea of school is also expanding beyond the structures, beyond the buildings. And both the spaces have potential of violence. You would see that online bullying or mocking fun. There were several videos of teacher trying to connect, and because teacher were also learning how to use Zoom. We also learned it last year. We also didn't know how to use Zoom. So many of the students would end up making fun of the teachers many of the time. When the LGBT students are there on the screen, they also face a very intense kind of bullying. And I'll talk about non-physical at length in few slides later. Then can we move on to the next slide? Yeah, so when we think about the kind of bullying, these are the four major kind of, we can summarize. There are many others, but we can, put them in this four category: verbal, cyber, social, and physical. Verbal is name calling, insulting them. Cyber is, sending mean texts, insulting them on social media. Social is very, excluding them. spreading fake rumors about someone, physical, that means you're physically hurting someone. So cyber is really important at the time that we're living right now. Everything has shifted to online. Social media has a greater presence in our lives now. We have seen cases last year, where many of the school children, they were facing violence from their peers, from other school members, and they were being insulted on social media. And a lot of time, because cyber is an anonymous space, and you can create a fake identity and no one will know, and you make that identity to sort of mock your other person. And LGBT kids face these kind of violence all the time in many of these social media spaces. The comment sections always get filled up with these abusers and all that. So that's also the kind of violence that has gotten more intense with the shift to the online spaces more. Then can we move to the next slides? The next one. Yeah. So then we see these are the surveys that I was mentioning briefly. Like in a survey, almost 400 LGBT youth in Tamil Nadu, they said that they had to skip classes to avoid bullying, while a third dropped out of the school altogether. So many of them had to leave school because of the intense bullying. About third of these people also reported that being bullied in the school, made sure that they could not continue their education. Almost 63% reported, their academic performance declined. Their marks and everything got down because they were facing bullying in the school. And only 18% said that, they had reported incident of bullying to school authority, which authority responded very rarely. 29% were asked to, change your gender or, behave in a manner. Why are you behaving this way? You're getting bullied only because, you're in a certain way. All those things were happening. Then 49% of these 400 LGBT youth were told to ignore the incident. So if someone got punched in the school or got bullied, they were told that ignore it. The more you exaggerate it, it will get worse. So this is the real-time data from Tamil Nadu. Then can we move on to the next slide? Then can we, yeah, thank you. Right, so this is another sort of report about the same bullying that had happened. There is one quote by "They left me with no choice. I think what I was doing or my mannerism were normal, but my classmate did not. First, I did not understand what made me stand out. Later, I realized when they started throwing stones at me, and I decided to stop going to school." So this is also a very intense form of bullying that happens, and it's not like the bullying always happens in this intense way. There are multiple ways through which bullying happens, to making fun of someone, to not include them in your groups. If you're eating lunch at a cafeteria, you're not allowing them to sit at your table, you're not playing games with them, you're not involving them in your other activities that you might do after school. So that's also put a lot of mental pressure on LGBTQ youth who's there in the school. Then can we go to the next slide? The next one. Right. So this is what I was talking about, the anonymity aspect, right? So there are multiple spaces of a school. If your school has a hostel, so that also comes under this particular way. And then online social media and online gaming. We have seen this rise of online gaming very rapidly in the pandemic, especially, but it's also like continuously wrapping up. We have example of PUBG being really popular with young people, and then there are many other online gaming communities. And these community, if you're a LGBT person or you're a school student, if you go to these spaces can be really dangerous for someone to just go there, and they might face abuses over there. But that also doesn't mean that these places are completely bad. It's what it does, it hints at this idea that we need more awareness, we need to know more about the community, we need to know more about the bullying and why it is wrong to bully someone on these spaces. All these spaces can be, can have all these kinds of bullying. And the anonymity aspect brings very intense kind of bullying on social media and online spaces, because no one can know your identity. And though people still can, get to know your identity, you can still be traceable on social media. If bullying gets really intense, many time it happens, but a lot of time LGBT youth choose not to do that, because then that also means they need to come out with their identity and tell people, this is I am and this is I am being targeted. So that's also another really layer of bullying that happens, and another layer of mental pressure that LGBT youth face while they're in school, while they're accessing all these spaces. And I'll again repeat it, that social media and online gaming is not a bad platform. It's like how people use it. These days, I myself play online gaming a lot, but also we need to, a lot of LGBT people and myself also had to carve out a space for myself to play all these games safely online in online spaces. So that's what we have to do, but we don't have to do that if the bullying is not there. And that's why we also thought that it's important, that we bring bullying aspect online, offline, and in the social media sites during this session while we're talking about LGBTQIA youth. Then next slide. Oh, come back to the previous slide. Yeah, so this is sort of the towards the end of our presentation. Zain, would you like to add something, or shall I continue?
You continue, please.
Yeah. All right. So this is what we have understood so far. We understood what gender is. We understood what sex is. We understood the many ideas of LGBTQIA community, including sexual orientation, gender expression, attraction, and everything. Then we also understood what bullying is, and why we need to think about when we go on these online anonymous platforms and how to make sure that these spaces are safe not only for ourselves but the people who are accessing and people who might stand out because they're queer, because they're LGBT, they're from the LGBT community. Then also in a classroom, many of you might have experienced, might have seen some person being made fun of, many slangs, and I don't want to use those slangs here. Many of you know them. There are very many ways, some people are made fun of. The most common is, oh, why are you behaving like particular gender? Like for male, it's said that why are you behaving like a girl? And that might have a really, negative impact on people's mental health. So we also need to remember while we're learning about LGBTQ identities, also to learn the real life impact that can happen in our schools. So we're also aware of these ideas. With this, I think I'm good. Then feel free to add if you want to add something.
Thank you.
And then we can show the last slide and close it officially.
Sure. Thank you very much. So as Jeet has put it very well, that there are so many different ways in which bullying happens at school, and not just in spaces like school, but also online platforms like our social media handles when we play online games. So it is also very important for all of us as young people who are studying in such a good school to also be conscious about the kind of media that we see. So there are also a lot of blogs these days which use a very transphobic and homophobic languages. So you as young people, you can really critique that and tell your friends and your families that there are various ways in which all of these videos are very problematic and in a way stigmatize those who are already marginalized. So as Jeet was sharing their experience at school, my experience was also very terrible. So I did my schooling in an all-girls school, and I was continuously told to make a plait. Yeah, plait is it? So plait out of my hair. And I would find it a very difficult experience altogether because I was not very comfortable in tying my hair, because I would always see myself as a boy, but my school was constantly seeing me as a girl, and they would always push me to wear certain kind of uniforms. Of course, we all have uniforms, and they would tell me to make a plait out of my hair and several other things that were very feminine in nature, to walk in a certain way. I do not walk in that stereotypic way in which a girl is expected to walk, because I do not see myself as one. So it is also very important for all of us to empathize with each other, because at the end we all have to really live together in harmony with peace, right? So I'll just end it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zen, for sharing. And just to conclude today's session, we are from Nazaria, a queer feminist resource group. Zen, it's okay. We don't have to share the screen.
Okay.
We can skip it. It's fine. Yeah, and you can follow us on our social media accounts. If you have any question, you can always reach out to us. We are a resource center, and that means that we will be there to provide you with information which is suitable for the age and suitable for your needs and demands. So if you have any questions, this is the time you can ask all the questions. Yeah, thank you so much for giving us the space. Yeah.
Thank you for being here with us today. We have really truly enjoyed this, and your insight has been truly very eye opening. Now we'll be opening our session to questions on both the YouTube and Zoom chat. So please, everyone in the audience, please feel free to post your questions.
Our committee members do have some questions to ask the panelists. The first person I would like to call upon is Ram Gopal Chawla from 11th F. I request you to please unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. My question is, how can parents absorb emerging sexual orientations and thus be an ally to their children?
Shall I go, Jeet? Okay, so first of all, it is very important for all the parents and the teachers here in this session to always make themselves not scared of getting into an uncomfortable situation. It is also good, very good to be in such situations because you would find various tendencies and ways of learning new things. So when you see that, okay, your child is not maybe aligning with the gender norms that were assigned to them at their birth, so it is always very important to talk to them and understand them. Because at the end, all of us as children, I am a young adult, I'm 24 years old, and I would really want my parents to really understand me, support me, because I think that is also going to make me more comfortable and confident in my personal life. So this love, this acceptance, this affirmation that can come from the parents, that can really make a huge difference in a life of a queer or a trans child. So I think that is going to be my answer. Jeet, please.
Yeah, I think you summarized it really well. I think it's always important because the first kind of space a child occupies is the home space. And if that space is safe for LGBT kids, I think that will help them understanding their identities. And how to do that is a job that I think parents can reach out to organizations who are working on LGBTQI rights, get some resources, learn about the identities, and provide a space which is open and people are ready to learn and unlearn and relearn many things. And I think that's what I keep telling everyone, that you don't have to be completely knowledgeable in one session and through one thing. It's a lifelong journey for everyone to understand, and it is confusing, as Dan said, that it can lead you to a very uncomfortable situation. But the thing is that after uncomfortable situation, you will find much more clarity and you'll be able to provide a safe space for children to sort of make peace with everything that's there.
Thank you for enlightening answer.
Our next person is Saina Madan from class 11th F.
Okay, so my question today is, if is coming out to your friends and family necessary, and how can I, as an ally, help my friend belonging to this community in doing so?
So can I take this there? Yeah. Okay, so coming out is a very deeply personal matter to everyone, and I think by the virtue of being a good friend, you can ensure that your friend is feeling supported and everything. But coming out depends on person to person. It's, I think, the one of the most um, fearful thing for anyone to do, because there is a lot of anticipation, will the people accept me, and a lot of LGBT people feel rejection from the families and friends when they sort of come out. Like, when I came out, many of my friends stopped being friends with me, and that happens with a lot of people. Many people do face violence from the family, so it's also very deeply personal kind of an idea. And it's amazing that it's amazing that, when people find the courage to sort of come out, and it's completely up to them whether they want to come out or not come out. It's not necessary depending on person to person, though it's important. If you're visible, that means, other people will feel comfortable enough to come out to you. So when I came out, many of my other friends also came out, and it became like we became good friends. So when I lost someone, I also found other, good friends at the same time. So, but it's a completely personal thing. It's not necessary at all, and no one should be forcing you to do that. And if someone is doing that, it's wrong. It's completely up to any individual whether they want to come out or not come out. Yeah, thank you, Saina.
Next person is Anushka Khimani from class 11th G.
Greetings to Zain and Jitendra. So my question to you guys today is, there are many people who pass homophobic and transphobic comments, slurs, and jokes. They also spread rumors and mock those who identify with the community. How should I, on a personal level, intervene and respond to this kind of harassment?
May I, Jeet? So, see, people from the community and people also from outside the community, we all see this happening every day in our lives. And especially for someone from the community, it gets very difficult for us to get on the receiving end always. Of course, we do not want anyone else to be on the receiving end, but at the same time, it's very difficult for someone from the community, especially. So I think if one is an ally, you can very respectfully tell the person that, hey, whatever you said was extremely transphobic and homophobic, and you really need to refrain yourself from saying anything like this to the people who are already marginalized, I've already said. And at times we also are vulnerable to different kind of violences, be it physical or sexual or emotional or financial, so many other things that they are with us. So as an ally, it's important to tell the people around you that we should not feed and really enjoy such things, because it's very inappropriate in so many different ways. And yeah, just that. Jeet, you please can take this.
No, I think you have summarized beautifully well. Yeah, I agree with you completely.
Thank you so much. Our next person is Aditya Srivastava from 11th A.
Good afternoon. My question is, how does exclusion from society due to differences in sexual orientations can affect an individual's mental health?
I think that's the question. We all can take it as a homework and think about, if we were to exclude from our friends group, or if we were to exclude from a class, or if we were to face a differentiated behavior from our teachers and our parents, how would we feel, and how is going to impact me as a person? Just think on those lines and try to figure out what other people who are facing these kind of exclusions, and that's the similar kind of pressure that many LGBT people and people who are excluded from all of these spaces do feel, and it does have negative impact on people's mental health, because exclusion is something that we all can understand and really think. But I would like to give this activity as a homework to everyone. I do sound like a teacher, but I'm not. So we can think about, just thinking about it. So what this activity will do is to sort of put yourself in other people's shoes, and just maybe walk like 10 meters in those shoes. So just have this activity down, think about it, and I think it will really help you to understand what kind of pressures they can be. Is that? Thank you for that.
I do not have anything to add. Thank you very much for that.
The next person is Ram Gopal Chawla of class 11th.
Okay, so my question is, what is the right way to respond to elders who are against the LGBTQI community, especially parents who force conversion therapies and corrective sexual acts on their children?
When it comes to the right way of like really responding to things which are so adverse and severe like conversion therapy, I think it gives me a lot of things to think about. And here I would also like to say, Jeets, I mean, I do not know how to really address this question, but you can not really anticipate what kind of reaction your parents might have towards you. So a lot of energy and is also drained in that process to always make up my mind, for example, to navigate ways in which I can really come out to them, because at times, looking at our own socialization, we have all been brought up in families which are heterosexual, which have really reinforced us into the binaries of male and female, and they would tell us to wear certain kind of clothes, and if at all we would really not conform to these norms, they would even penalize us with punitive consequences to this, one such being conversion therapy. So I think when it comes to conversion therapy, there is no warm way in which one can really react to this. And I'm also saying this as someone from the community, because yes, that brings in a lot of trauma, and that is not correct at all. You would see that it also is not legal. It doesn't, and even the high courts of different states have acknowledged that this is not a good practice that should be really conducted. So I really do not know. I know I haven't answered your question, Ram, as in what ways in which we can really address to our elders in such a situation, but I really do not have an answer. So I'll ask Jeet to please say.
No, I agree with you, Zain. I was also thinking, how do you respond to someone? Because what do we mean by conversion? It's like, if we take your example, Ram Gopal, like if one day you were to forced into, oh, that you're a boy, but we think that you're a girl, and let us change your gender out of, your will. And when your rights are surrendered, and we are under a constitution which provides a certain rights, so this will bring a lot of trauma, and a lot of people do face various kinds of conversion therapies. There were many cases that I know of that have happened in past, and it's really traumatic for people. So it will not do any good to either of them. So, but how to respond to such elders? It's also a good idea to equip yourself with information, rights, and the kind of coping mechanism you might need. If something has happened, it's always good idea to reach out to others who can help you out, to take you out of this situation, because the situation is very violent. Not just your mental health, but your physical health at the same time. It will have really adverse effects. So if such things are happening, one should definitely reach out to other spaces who can really help you get out of the situation, because this, as I said, it is really traumatic. And I also really don't have an answer how to provide a warm answer to that, because it does put a lot of trauma and pressure on an individual.
Thank you. Our next person is Gauri Agarwal from class 11th B.
Gauri, you are on mute. We can't hear you.
Gauri, unmute yourself, please.
Good afternoon. My question is, what can be done to diminish prejudice and discrimination against lesbian, gay, and bisexual people, and thus show acceptance towards them?
Then you can take it.
So since this is a school space, I am also an educator. I'll start with the school only. So you, as young people, there are also some teachers here in this session, and I'm also assuming that other teachers and other students are also listening to us via the YouTube channel of the school. So first of all, it is very important to create this culture of asking pronouns from each other. So for example, when I was in school and people would tell me, my new teachers, especially when we tend to go into the new class, and teachers always tell you to introduce yourself, right? So it is very important for all of us to even ask pronouns from each other, that what kind of pronouns do you prefer. So if that space would have been given to me when I was back in school few years back, then I think that would have been a very better experience for me. So you can start with pronouns first. Second, there's also this fear when we see some varieties around us, because as I've already said, that puts us into very difficult situations. And since we do not meet many people like me and Jeet, you do not meet such people on everyday basis. So it is always very good to educate yourself, to read about such different gender identities and sexual orientations that exist in this world. So that is another thing that you can do, to constantly read new things about what is going on in the world. And always, I think, always just try to not uh, consume and enjoy transphobic and homophobic jokes. And if somebody around you is like really saying that and sharing such kind of things with you, it's important for you to just, very warmly and respectfully tell them कि okay, ये ठीक नहीं है, हमें ये नहीं करना चाहिए और हम ये नहीं करेंगे. That is going to be my answer, Gauri. Thank you. Jeet, if you have anything to add, please.
Yeah, it's like just a bit about, like, we all know, if you are on social media, we know there are certain accounts who, especially men, who would dress up as women and then do this exaggerated kind of comedy that we have seen in shows like Kapil Sharma show that comes. But what it does, it puts a stereotype on people. So when someone whose identity is female or whose identity is non-binary is dressing up in a quote unquote feminine manner, so they get bullied and harassed because the idea of normalization is already there. People are thinking that, oh, it's okay to make fun of someone who is wearing bangles, or it's okay to make fun of someone who has nail paint on. So what it does is it increases this idea of bullying. And I think one need to remember while consuming this kind of media, be it Kapil Sharma show, be it many influencers on social media, to always be aware of like the kind of impact these quote unquote comedy will have on people whose identity is being jeopardized by just for the clout or just for the TRPs. So I think it's also another idea. And as Zain said, that always read and always ask questions, because once you ask questions, the doubts will the doubts will not disappear but just like get eased up. But at the same time, you will also add into the conversation, and I think conversation is the best way, and one can, like, through conversation, address many of these issues. Yeah, thank you, Gauri, for your question. Really amazing question.
Last but not least, we have Saina Madan from class 11th F.
Okay, so the question I'd like to put up is that, how they say that love exists in all forms. And so then why do people are against it when it comes to loving the same gender? And how can such rigid ideologies be, stemming from this religious beliefs ever be altered?
May I go, Jeet? Okay, so thank you very much for that question, Saina. I'm going to put the answer very simply in Hindi. हम जब पैदा होते हैं, we are expected to act in a certain way. और तभी से हमारे parents also decide upon the kind of relationship that we might be having in a future, right? So you would often see your parents, not your parents, then in the movies that he would always अगर एक बेटी का फादर है तो वो बोलेगा ओके मुझे धनराशि इकट्ठा करना है क्योंकि बेटी की शादी होगी, लड़के से होगी. अब वो अगर लड़की कल आके कहती है कि नहीं लड़के से नहीं होगी, मुझे लड़की से करनी है, तो दैट इज गोइंग टू बी अ बिग शॉक. क्यों? क्योंकि वी हैव नेवर सीन सच काइंड ऑफ रिलेशनशिप्स एग्जिस्टिंग इन आवर रियल लाइव्स. हमने देखे हैं, कैसे देखे? हमने मूवीज में देखे हैं. हमने एक दो मूवीज देखनी. एंड लेट मी आल्सो पुट इट आउट वेरी क्लियरली कि वो मूवीज में जो रिप्रेजेंटेशन है वो भी बहुत प्रॉब्लमेटिक है. जिन मूवीज को हम देख के अपने कंक्लूजन्स बना लेते हैं वही सब कुछ नहीं है, उनके अंदर बहुत फॉल्स है. तो इस वजह से हम देखते हैं कि different kind of loves and stories do not find acceptance in the society. अब जब सवाल आता है कि हम इसे कैसे इंक्लूड कर सकते हैं, तो वही सारे जवाब रहेंगे. आप नया सीखने की इच्छा रखिए, आप नया जानने की कोशिश करिए, आप पढ़िए उसके बारे में. If I, Jeet, and we all are having this discussion with you, we would also want you to take this discussion to your parents and talk to them as in how they can really understand the LGBTQIA plus community. So if I and Jeet are talking to you, हम कुछ unicorns नहीं है, ना ही aliens हैं. We all have the same kind of skin. We are all speaking similar kind of languages, right? We look like humans only. We are no different, but our expression is different, and that expression when becomes a difficult experience for someone else, then that is going to be a challenge for that person, not me. That should not be, the homework should not be mine कि ठीक है मुझे educate करना है, मुझे इनको accept नहीं करना है. आपका जो दूसरे इंसान है जिनको uncomfortable महसूस हो रहा है, हमारा काम है और देखना और पढ़ना. क्यों हम इतनी जल्दी इतने डर जाते हैं? क्यों कर जाते हैं हम? नहीं डरना चाहिए. क्या है इतना अलग? क्या है? I am also a human, you are also a human. I might love a woman, I might love a man, I might love no one, I might love myself. What's the difference? What makes me so different? So yeah, Jeet, you can please add.
No, thank you, then. You put it beautifully. And just with the unicorn bit, I mean, I wish I could be a unicorn. That would be amazing. But since that's not there, but yeah, you rightly said that, we can educate ourselves and we can take this conversation to our parents. Once this video is out, you can show it to them. If not this particular video, we will be sharing some resources, just like the two videos that we have presented in today's presentation. You can show those videos and have that conversation if you want to have. And I always say that it's always learning, and always learn, relearn, and unlearn things that we know and we think that we know, because there might be other varieties of things that we might be coming across. So I think, yeah. Thank you, Zan, for beautifully putting it that.
Thank you so much.
So as we are definitely constricted by time, but this has been so immersing, and it's been so amazing to have you both here. So thank you so much.
I believe that all 28 of us who are here in today's meeting, and to the ones who have joined through YouTube, all of us have definitely changed our perspective and have learned so much about the community. And I really hope that all of us in the near future feel comfortable towards our friends or to people in the community to, open up to them and, just become a very peaceful person in life. Thank you so much.